What is up, you amazing men and women of YouTubeverse? Well, let's be honest, it's mostly just men watching this. Hi, Mom, though. I'm back at it again. This is my junk 1966 Mustang, and if you've been following it so far, you know that last time we got the engine and transmission sitting in the car, which is huge. Now, on this episode, it's time to undo all that progress because I realized I missed one very important part. So what I'm missing here is between the block of the motor and the bell housing, there's supposed to be a spacer plate. Not only does that help line up your starter, but I believe the shims are needed for like proper clutch engagement. That's something that I really can't skip over. So it's time to bring this thing back out. Actually, while the motor is out and I have to take the transmission off to put the spacer plates on, I figured I might as well give it a coat of paint. I've got a couple cans of new Ford Blue. We'll be doing a liberal coating of that entire engine with it, and it'll look a lot better. Then I figured, while I'm doing that, I might as well actually prep and paint the engine bay and make it look worthy of a nice shiny blue motor. And then I figured, while I'm doing that, I might as well seal all the cowl openings on the sides of the fenders that have little holes. And then I figured, while I'm doing that, I might as well patch the tweak section of the quarter here that doesn't follow the actual body lines. And then I figured out, while I'm doing that, I might as well fix the holes in the trunk. And then I figured, while I'm doing that, I might as well fix this hole for the headlight, might as well fix the hole for the sail panel. So this is gonna be a big episode of patching, painting, and prepping. And hopefully, I'll be a lot more proud of the product I'm putting out when it's time to put the motor in the car for the second time. It's gonna be a lot of not fun, but I'm fresh with determination after putting a YouTube video out for the first time in 3 months, so it should be an exciting one. You know, it's like, I'm not gonna let this get my spirits down. Fine, I'll pull the motor back out. I don't even care. I refuse to let this car get the better of me. If I crash out, the Mustang wins, and that is not happening. That's not how we built here. Whew, didn't even realize my dipstick fell on the floor. Yeah, you wouldn't want to miss this period piece. That's a mint original dipstick in just fantastic condition. Well, oh yeah, I have rust much oil in my engine. That's good to know. There's always some sort of shenanigans when I was pulling a motor. Oh! We're good. And we're gonna copy our old strategy because it actually worked really well aside from me dropping the motor onto the radiator support, which was suboptimal. This is deeply maddening. Well, I'll never worry about that bolt hole being too big. Ow! That just was my head making contact with the bottom of the fender. This is already going so amazingly, and I'm so energized to do the rest of the stuff I talked about doing in the video. Okay, it's up in the air now. There we go. Okay, now I'd like to remove this just as one unit here. All right. All right. Put that there. I still don't think I got them tight enough, so maybe this is a blessing in disguise. And here comes the flywheel. Set that there. Now this thing's ready for a spacer plate, and we're also gonna be painting it. So in order to do that, I think we'll just finish the assembly because I'll paint the water pump that's going on it. We're gonna need an intake. I'm gonna need to vacuum it up, clean it, degrease it, do all that fun stuff. I think what we're gonna do with this thing actually is put it back on the engine stand. So we're really taking 3 steps backwards here, but that's gonna allow me to finish the assembly of the rest of the engine. I actually wanna take the timing cover off and put RTV on that gasket because I've seen a lot of that happen. Then I can also flip it upside down to clean off the intake mating surface for the gasket, which is something I also didn't do. Kind of a little bit of a bummer, but this is all of my own doing, so I really only have myself to blame, and it is okay to just suck it up and say, fine, I'll do it right this time. And that's really what this whole episode's about.
Okay, that is on an engine stand. All right, I'm gonna roll this thing over. I'm gonna get the intake valley scraped off. I think I put about a quart or two of oil in here just to prevent it from rusting.
We'll get some junk cardboard to kind of try and capture the bulk of it here. Put this bit over like that. This is what all my engineering training is prepping me for, is this foolishness. There's all the metal shavings from when I had to punch an intake bolt out that snapped off. But don't worry, they're not in the intake valley. They were just in here and I didn't shop back them out. I taped off the intake valley. I'm not letting any of that get into this precious $200 junkyard motor. I've also just realized now that I didn't plug the original dipstick hole in the side of the block because I'm using the one off the timing cover. So oopsie, that'll have to probably find a dowel plug that pounds into there. Not a big deal. Glad I caught it though. Another reason why I should have pulled this motor in the first place. We are back on the engine, and today is finally going to be the day where we get this thing painted and assembled for hopefully the final time. I picked up a couple interesting things here. First thing is a new gasket set because we're redoing it with a fresh timing cover. So the problem is the old timing cover was a 289 timing cover, and the problem with that is it uses a really weird style of water pump that didn't fit the one I had and pretty much every single aftermarket 302 pump ever made. And not only that, but no pump that you can get for that style of timing cover just works off the shelf with the serpentine belt system that I think I want to use. So I just got a generic timing cover. I think this is out of a Bronco. So it still has the provision for the mechanical fuel pump. And even though it didn't come with a serpentine water pump, it will let me run a serpentine water pump from a Fox body. That should hopefully mesh and play nice with all the rest of the components. Scratch up this oil pan with some sandpaper because it's a darker Ford blue, and I went with the lighter Ford blue as my color for the motor, which I know isn't period correct, but I really like the lighter Ford blue color, so I'm interested in painting the motor like that, and I think it'll look really good. It might not look correct, but I love the color. We'll be finishing prepping up the motor here. I've got it pretty much nicely wiped down and wire wheeled. You saw me doing that earlier. I had to weld and extract in one of the broken exhaust studs. And it looks like there's actually one more that I forgot about that now I'm looking at right now for the first time. Oh. Oh, did it work? Nope. Ooh. Is that progress? There we go. You know, I only do this method because I'm too stupid to drill and tap like them outright with a screw extractor. I always mess them up. So I always resort to this first, and it was actually recessed into the head, so I didn't want to accidentally weld my nut to the head as well. A real doozy. Probably should have just drilled it, but now it's out, and now we can prep and paint the block. All right, I got the oil pan painted, and then here's the engine. Looking pretty good. I've got it all unmasked, and I think it's about done. So now the next step is going to be to reassemble the rest of the motor and making a couple changes. First off, I've got this lovely eBay timing cover. Don't worry about that notch seal. I pounded it in from the back like it was a vintage cover, and then I realized I was supposed to put them in from the front. So I did the proper thing, and I just reused the seal that I'd already clearanced the lip of, but it'll be fine. So we're going to be assembling that to the motor. This time I'm going to do some RTV on this sealant surface just to make sure that when we get this beautiful looking light forward blue motor together that there's not going to be any leaks. Then I've got the oil pan painted, and we'll get that on. I got the spacer plate in too, so then I can put the transmission back on it, and then we'll put this whole fresher, cooler looking assembly back into the car once we refresh the engine bay a little bit. All right, I got the oil pan just chilling on there, and the next step is going to be to put the timing cover on there. I've got the gasket there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a small coat of RTV just all over the gasket mating surface around the water jackets, and then also on the timing cover. Sandwich that gasket in between because these are known to leak, and this is my first time doing a small block Ford all the way like this. So yeah, I want to be careful. I don't want to be taking it apart for leaks a second time. You may have noticed I don't have dowel pins in my block to align the timing cover, and that's because they never existed with the old motor. So I don't know what was going on with that, but I don't know, you don't need them if you use the crank pulley to center this whole shebang. So that's my plan. Maybe used a little bit too much, but that's okay. We'll just wipe the excess all over my jeans and ruin them, and it'll be great. Okay, freshly gooped up. I want to make sure that oil pan seal sits in the valley of the timing cover. Okay, and that's pretty much in place. I'm going to get a little bit of bolts in there, get it snugged down, but still a little loose. And what I'm going to do then is install the crank pulley, and I'm going to let that center itself on the seal and have that be what actually locates this timing cover since I don't have the dowel pins. Then I'll tighten the whole oil pan up to the assembly and it'll be done. Now I was an idiot and I didn't organize my bolts, so I'm currently playing bolt roulette with all the different bolts that I have laying around. Okay, well there it is with the timing cover. I forgot to paint the harmonic balancer before I realized that I needed to put it on before the RTV set. So I'll just mask off the rest of this with some paper and then wire wheel it while it's on the motor. And I'll give it a coat of paint so it doesn't look so rusty and ugly on the front of this. It'll be a really, really, really nice motor to have in this car. So I'm pretty excited about this progress. All right, I'm gonna try to fix this quarter panel. If you notice, I'll throw a picture up on the screen, but it slopes upwards. It looks really bad. So I'm gonna try to fix it instead of doing a whole quarter. If I mess it up, I might end up having to do that. But I'm gonna kind of cut a wedge piece out of this section of the quarter here and see if I can fold this end down so that the body line is straight. And if I can do that, then I can probably just weld it up, body filler along this weld line that this guy did, and get away with it. But we're gonna see. I might end up having to do an entire quarter. That would really suck. Okay, well I didn't want to use my GoPro while I was welding because that probably wouldn't be good for the lens, but I think this is better. I mean, it's still obviously not going to be even close to perfect, but it doesn't have that down bend. What I'm going to do is I'm going to like needle file or sand or whatever all the weld off, and then just lay like a thin coat of Bondo over this ridge where the quarter panel was. I have no idea why this guy chose to patch the quarter panel by cutting off the body line of the car and then trying to fit his up to it is a terrible idea. But then again, who am I to judge? I've done a lot of terrible things to this car already. I started opening up the holes in the trunk with a die grinder. We'll get to that later. I'm still not sure quite how I want to tackle those. But the one we're going to do right now is this quarter panel patch, which I did a little while ago. And where I started welding here, you can see I got a little too gung-ho. See these big fat welds? Didn't need to be there. So I burned through a big part of this and then tried to fill it with weld and made it even worse. So we're just going to put a little square in there, and we're going to be a lot lighter on our tacks this time and a lot more measured with our fitment, and then hopefully that will finish this quarter up. Again, a little skim coat of Bondo. It's fine. Not going to be a show car. At this point, if my goal for this is to be a show car, I would need to just burn the whole thing to the ground and buy a Dynacorn body or something. But this will be good enough to make a cruiser and like a race car. And then I won't be worried when I hit cones in it in autocross. I got this metal nibbler for $3 at a swap meet. And I just used it the other day patching a trunk floor, and cutting mild steel with it worked phenomenally. So we're gonna try it on this steel sheeting I got for free 99. We'll have to trim that down a little bit. I want it to fit straight in there. I could just stick it in there from the back and fill it in, but then I'd have to fill that entire area in with like body filler, and I'm not gonna do that. I'll do it right this time. Well, by doing it right, I mean like I'll do it a little differently. That's probably better. Right in everything I do on this car is a very subjective term. Okay, you can see the aftermath of that. So it's filled pretty well. This panel actually warped inwards a little bit, so I'm gonna look up how to deal with that. I might just end up smashing it with a rubber mallet. All right, here's the state of the game. I've cut out the really rusty areas, and I've made this one just a really crude overlap. And then I have a bent piece that's gonna go here to replace the bent over piece of the channel. And that'll kind of closely approximate it. It's not gonna be super pretty, but it'll be fine. I'm gonna make one for that one there, and I've also made a piece for this rusted out quarter panel section. So we're gonna weld that in. I ran out of gas, so these tacks are with no gas. Really gross stuff, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. I've got one there, so I've really just got one left to make, and it's just a swept piece for that corner piece that I'm gonna weld in underneath. And then I'll get it all welded completely, and then I'm gonna go through with the wire wheel and clean the channel out. And I'm gonna paint this with like POR 15 or the rust encapsulator, because this trunk panel will be hidden when the trunk is closed, so you won't see it from outside. So I can use that really heavy rust encapsulating paint, keep it fresh. These little pinholes here, I'm just going to fill with epoxy once I've wire wheeled all the rust off them and painted them, and that'll be fine. All I really need this to do is be watertight and to prevent it from rusting out further in the future. Well, it's not great, but it's also not a hole, so I'm not too upset about that. I got the little lip done there. This one was a little bit messier, especially along the ridge here, so we're gonna see what we can do. We might have to sand and fill that out a little bit. Gonna epoxy that up, and then my last bit is I'm gonna make a patch. It's gonna, I think, lay over it like a shingle, maybe that'll help with the water.
Okay, I'm gonna weld that in and we'll see how it looks.
All right, here's where we're at. That one's pretty much done. That one's pretty much done. All nasty, boogery, ew, but it's not a hole anymore, so I'll consider that an improvement. I'm gonna take my needle filer and I'm just gonna really knock all the weld down, especially on the quarter panel here, but I'll just get it mostly flat on the inside, and then this whole thing is just gonna get painted with some super heavy duty rust preventative paint that'll hopefully stave this off for a while in the future. What I'm going to try to do next here is fix this sail panel, and this is probably the nastiest rust on the body of the entire car. And you can tell what they've done is that it started to rust and bubble, and what they did is just smeared it with Bondo. This is a ton of body filler, and it's just nasty. So I have a new sail panel in weld through primer, and we're going to cut as much as we can out of this. I'm going to try and go like down to here-ish, and then cut around this, leave this for now, and then try and see how we're gonna fit everything up and go about patching this. Alright, well, I've made this entire garage into my cancer kingdom. It's like hazy. You can see it on the GoPro. But we got it fixed. I had to turn the camera off because it was just getting too difficult to record, and I didn't want to damage the camera. You can notice some lead here. That was used from the factory to seal this gap, and I tried to heat it with a torch and get it off of there, but I missed some spots and ended up burning it up while I was welding. So I was wearing a respirator. Hopefully this is... I don't know, I'm going to do some Googling about the long-term health awesomeness that will surely befall me, but hey, it's all welded in. This got a little messy because there was still rot in this channel, and I kind of had to pack it and just work my way along with weld until I got the solid metal, but I'll get in there with my little needle filer or sander, and it should look good enough to skim body filler on that, get this sanded down, prime it, you know. The whole plan for this back end of the car now, since this is basically all had to be redone, is to sand it down, body filler it, prime it, and then I'm just going to rattle can it with just cans, hopefully paint matched. And it's going to be actual automotive paint, but we're going to roll like that for quite a few years because I have non-existent money for a proper paint job. But hey, this isn't actually too bad. I bought the right sail panel patch panel, so I do still have the body line there, and I left this one intact until I got to the lead just packed in where it hits the back glass there. But all of this should just get some short strand filler on the areas where it gets a little sketchy, and it shouldn't really matter. I just want this to be a cruiser. I'm never going to actually enter this in a legitimate show, and it's never going to bring home any rewards, but it is going to bring me a lot of enjoyment when I put my kid in it, take my wife out to a date, you know, bomb around the roads with my friends in it. So that's the whole point of this project, and so something like that kind of quality of work is just acceptable by those standards. All right, I'm gonna leave it there for now. Sorry about all the noise. My dad is fighting demons in the wood shop, but we've got the engine fully dressed. We've got the sail panel patched. I've got the fenders back off the car, and now in the next episode, we're gonna prep and just shoot a quick coat of spray paint on this engine bay to kind of get it a uniform black, and then we'll be putting that refreshed engine back in there, and we'll be going over the accessory drive, basically trying to get the rest of the mechanical systems in line and ready to go so we can finally drive this car. So if you like this kind of project and you want to see more of it, please subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think. Even if you hate the work I'm doing, hey, let me know so I know to lock in and step up my game. But I really appreciate everybody who's watched so far, and stay tuned for some more big progress.